Hey guys, my name is Tom Holkenborg. Other people also know me as Junkie XL. I've been making music all my life. First I was a producer, then an electronic artist under the name Junkie XL, and for the last 10 years I've been a film composer. All my life I've been collecting gear. It started as young as when I was 14 years old, and I had my first distortion pedal. I started working in a music store. I started collecting synthesizers that were traded in. And this went on through whole my life. And the reason why I'm calling myself a full contact composer is because I love to turn knobs, I love to play guitars, I love to mix on analog desks. I want to be in control of the whole process all the way through. And my hands are so important in that. But at a certain point, I realized that I collected so much gear that it almost became a creative burden. And for me, it's time to cleanse myself of that creative burden with all those wonderful instruments that I've collected over the years. And I have decided to sell all my gear and to continue working in a way smaller setup with just a few things that I really want to keep. Now these are not just synthesizers and guitars, it's also guitar amps, it's also complete drum kits. Everything that I collected over the years that I've made such incredible music with the help of my loyal friends. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very unique set. And you might think, what the hell is this all? Let's just start with the easy part. And that is the Stretch DX drum computer by OBERHEIM. Why is it called Stretch? Because a normal drum computer would go to here, and this one has 4 extra instruments that you can add. The beauty of this is that if you open this drum computer, there we have it, you see EPROMs. Now, EPROMs in those days, you were able to buy with a couple of sounds for your drum computer. So they come with the standard sounds in those days off the drum computer, like a kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat, toms, and cymbals and percussion. But at a certain point, OBERHEIM released the PROMMER. Now, the PROMMER gives you the opportunity to put an EPROM in that is brand new, and you can still buy them. And you can sample your own sounds on the back, and you can burn it onto the EPROM, and then you can stick it into your drum computer, and now you could play back the sample you recorded onto your drum computer. But the quality of the playback of the samples is so bizarre that you get that really, really interesting quality. And so this set was used a lot for Deadpool, where I sampled my own drum kit and cymbals and stuff. And I created my own drum kit, and with that I was programming all the beats. So it's a really unique set, the PROMMER, the Stretch DX, and the eraser for the EPROMs, and you can build your own custom sounding OBERHEIM DX drum synthesizer. It's a beast of a machine. Oh, and it also has MIDI in and out. So it's also really great. You're gonna love this. This is a very special box. This is the ROLAND S50. It was the first flagship sampler that they released halfway in the 80s. And I acquired it pretty soon after that. And I still have it with the DT100 digital tablet, where you can draw waveforms and you can create the perfect loop sound with your sampler. It is limited in the amount of seconds that you can sample. I think it's twice 7.2 seconds. And you store it on a virtual floppy disk, because I replaced it with a USB to floppy, and I have a huge amount of keys with all the original factory library sounds of ROLAND on there. And a lot of custom made sounds. And I have it with a really small LCD screen, so you could see the sampler in full operation. And the navigation between the buttons here and your dial, plus that little screen, it's incredible. It feels almost like you're working with a modern plugin in Cubase. It's mind-boggling. Like the low end is so incredibly full, and it's so warm how it creates like certain patches, and it's really great, especially if you excuse me, sample something a little on the hotter side, so you overdrive the input. You have to check it out. Sometimes it's but sometimes it gives that punch, that snap to the sound that is really great for drum sounds. It's a absolutely fantastic box. This is the Fender Dobro guitar. What's really great about this guitar, that it has this really great resonating sounds, but it also has built-in pickups. You can change the balance of the sounds, but obviously you can record it with a microphone. I've done both. I got this guitar, I think 7, 8 years or so ago. I was working on a project called Point Break, and I did some guitar pieces for that using this instrument. It's a really great sounding instrument. Here we have the Voyager MINIMOOG. Absolutely incredible beast made by Moog, and I've got the extended version of it. So it has these semi-modular functions to stack some extra modulation here and there. The beautiful thing is you can store all that. It has a controller here. It also has a controller here. It has the sound of the MINIMOOG traditionally, but it has all these extra digital parameters underneath to make a sound way more interesting. And of course, with the additional patching that you can do on the left, you have pretty full control over this synth. Its low end is so amazing. The sound design possibilities and the low frequencies are amazing. I mean, it's used in Mad Max, it's used in Deadpool, it's used in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, it's used in Alita, it's used in Mortal Engines. I mean, I can go on and on. It's used everywhere. It's a workhorse analog synth, but with technology what is available to us now. And here we have a really great pedal from Earthquaker devices, and all these pedals are absolutely fantastic. This one is one of my favorite ones. It's the Interstellar Orbiter, and it's a modulation pedal with filters where you can do really crazy stuff and very floaty. So it's great for ambient guitars with a lot of reverb after it or delays. So it's very versatile in its sound. I've used it for synths. I've hooked it up within a modular synth scenario, but definitely with a lot of guitars. A really awesome box to have. This is the Yamaha 40M from the CS series, and it's such an incredible synth. 2 super fat oscillators, a great sounding filter, and you had the opportunity to write in total 20 presets, which was very unique for that time period. This is really great for bass lines and for aggressive lead sounds, but I've been using it for bass sounds primarily. Excessively used on the Zack Snyder Cut, Justice League. Very much used on Mad Max, and everywhere where I needed that really growling sound. And it's incredible. It's very versatile, and you will be amazed how fat this thing sounds with just 2 oscillators. And this is my GRETSCH set. I use this kit because it has that nice Americana sound. So I use this for Sonic the Hedgehog. There's a couple of cues in the movie where we go to Greenfield, and then there's a little bit of mellow drumming going on, and I did that with this drum kit. The snare drum from this drum kit that has a really nice ring to it was used on Deadpool, and I sampled it with a sampler to give it that really raunchy quality. So, but also my oldest son loved to bang on this drum kit as well. So, so it was fun all around, no matter what. This is a very rare one. This is the CS70M, a dual channel polyphonic synthesizer. And so this was the second most expensive synth in those days from Yamaha. Below that is the CS60, and above it, it's the CS80. So this was in between the 80 and the 60. It has some sort of a polyphonic sequencer in there. It also has presets, in this case more than some of the other models, so it's 2 × 15. And what is interesting is that the oscillators have the opportunity to, like an organ, to go in certain steps, like a drawbar, 16, 8, 5 and oh, my eyes are so bad, glasses, 5 1/3, 4, 2 2/3, 2. So again, what I said earlier is like this is a time period where we're switching from full operational synthesizers coming from the organ world. It also has a built-in ensemble, which is a sort of chorus effect and a tremolo. It's not a super fat sounding synth like the 40M, for instance. So I wouldn't use it for fat bass lines, but it's great for more ambient type pads, especially if you mix it with really nice delay and with reverb, you get really astonishing results. And it's a very rare synth, and on top of it, it's absolutely immaculate condition. I've used this on projects where I need more of an ambient type of synthesizer approach. So some of the movies where Alita, I've used it on the Zack Snyder cut to create some droney elements. I've used it on Mortal Engines. So really, really great synth. And ladies and gentlemen, here we have the Yamaha DX5. The DX5 came out somewhere in the early 80s, and it contains two DX7s and fully programmable separately, and you can stack them up, you can double, you can split them. And this sound really was used on Deadpool. It has that instant 80s quality to it that was used in bands like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but Jen Hammer used it on the TV show Miami Vice. It comes also with a bunch of different cartridges and also a box with a bunch of presets. So it's really great. It's a little tricky to program, but it is a fantastic sounding synth. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a Gibson guitar, but a very special one. It has a tremolo, not often to be seen on a Gibson guitar. It's got two humbuckers. It has a really rich, full sound. This is one of the Mad Max guitars where I played the doof riff on. I used a couple of Gibsons for that. Some would sound a little darker, other ones would sound a little aggressive. This has a really nice warmer sound to it, and I hooked this up on an orange amp and just like crank it all the way up, and the noise that came out of it was absolutely fantastic. And here it is, the orange THUNDERVERB 200, by far the loudest amplifier that you can buy. It's insane how loud it goes. I've had this for 15 years, 16 years or so. I used it for the first time when I did a commercial with Guy Ritchie for the European Championships soccer to record guitar with it. It has that raunchy quality. I also used it on Booming Back At Ya, my artist album from 2008. And then I started using it on all kinds of film scores. So it's extensively used on 300 Rise of an Empire with all these really aggressive bass riffs. And it is the amp that I recorded all the Mad Max doof riffs with the various different Gibson guitars. An absolutely beast of an amp and super reliable. And the sound of it is just magnificent. So this is the PS3100 KORG, incredible rare synth. Especially because it's so big and large, but also because it's 48 voice polyphonic. It's incredible. So technically you can play all the keys on the keyboard, and there will be a unique oscillator board that will deliver that sound. Also, each note in the octave you can tune to your liking, which means that it's really great if you, for instance, want to play something with a microtonal scale, whether it's an Arabian scale or a Turkish scale. You can actually tune these notes exactly to your liking, and now you can play that. So this is really, really great for that. One of the things that made it so special is the resonators. So there's 3 of them, and with a certain type of intensity, and you can use that with LFO, for instance, to have it move around. And it creates a really nice ambient quality to it. This is by no means, even though it looks bulky, it doesn't sound aggressive, it doesn't sound ballsy in the low end, not at all. It's more like a mid-range synthesizer frequency-wise. But in that mid-range, it does really, really amazing stuff. And it's one of the earliest synths that I acquired. I made so much music with this on all my artist records, on any film score that needed some ambient quality to it, whether it was Batman vs. Superman or it was Alita. I used it on remixes, whether it was Coldplay or it was Fatboy Slim, for instance. I've used it on the Elvis remix and I had so much fun with it. This is a really, really special synth. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the god of all chorus ensembles. It's the Boss chorus ensemble. But it's an incredible pedal and it sounds very full and very rich. And I made incredible results with this. I've used it with synthesizers, I've used it on bass, I've used it on guitar. Especially it was used on Deadpool to give the typical 80s sounding guitars like that chorusy vibe that was like so hip in the 80s. So it's a really, really great pedal, definitely for the connoisseurs out there that know how great this box is. And here we have the famous OBXA by Oberheim. Very, very, very classic synth. I think Van Halen used this to play Jump. Not this particular synthesizer, but this synthesizer did belong to the keyboard player of Journey. And they recorded in the studio, I Want to Know What Love Is. That was actually this physical synth before I acquired it. This is such a great synth for bass sounds because of the unisono mode that it has. So you could stack up all these oscillators on top of each other and it sounds really, really fat. The filter sounds amazing. So it's great for those artificial brass brams, that kind of stuff, but also for bass lines that are really, really punchy. So again, used a lot on Justice League and Alita, it was used a lot. And on Mortal Engines, it was used a lot. And this is the Synergy, and it comes with the KAYPRO 2. So what is this? This is a DX type synthesizer. It was made in the 70s. It was used by Wendy Carlos when she did the original Tron. Not this particular synth, but that synth. And it comes with a bunch of cartridges with presets on there that she developed. And so this FM synthesizer has a very unique sound. It has 24 presets. And with this box that you can hook up with this old computer, this wonderful old computer, you could actually control the preset building process, and you could then save it internally or later burn it onto a cartridge. And I've used it on various different films. A lot of it is being used in Justice League, the Snyder Cut. It was also used for Distance Between Dreams. It's a really versatile box. This is a very special box, of which the proceeds of this sale will go to a very special place. About that in a minute. First, about the box. This is an ARP 2600 clone and sequencer. It's made for me somewhere in 2015, and it's completely analog. It's completely made according to the original specs of the ARP 2600, but it has some improvements. For instance, lights on the faders. So when you make music in the dark or dimmed light, you see what you're doing. And it feels like you're working with a spaceship. It's really cool. The sound of it is absolutely fantastic. It's very raw. It's got incredible filters. And the cross-modulation options are really insane. I've used this combination a lot on Deadpool to make these really chunky sequences that go up and down in filter and also in intensity. It's an absolutely fantastic synth. Now, The proceeds of this sale go to this very special place. And this place is the Pediatric Cancer Foundation, and where they do research for cancer into kids, but they also sponsor treatments for kids. This is a very important organization. And for me, cancer is special because I've had friends who had cancer, colleagues, and my mom actually died of cancer. So cancer is really close to me, and to see that in kids is absolutely horrible. So therefore, the proceeds of this sale will go to that foundation. And it's an immaculate Synth, and it is an incredible place where the money is going to. Here, ladies and gentlemen, we have the OBERHEIM Expander. Now, this is somewhat of a weird beast, and it's a 6-voice synthesizer, whether you use it in single patch or multi-patch. And the cool thing is that it has 6 outputs out of the back. And so each voice will come out of its own output. So if you play brass patches or string patches, each note will come out of one of these outputs. So you could do really crazy stuff with panning. Bass sounds and brass sounds from this thing sound absolutely incredible. It's the saw waves of this typical synthesizer that sounds so incredible. It's definitely hard to program, but once you get around it, you're able to really create really amazing sounds. There's also a lot of sounds that you can find online, and via a very simple MIDI dump program, you could load up more sequences to it. It's an immaculate condition, really fine, like brand new out of the store almost. Used it on Deadpool and Batman vs Superman and the Snyder Cut, Justice League. So those are the projects I primarily used it on. And this is my JCM 800 Marshall amplifier. I've been looking for an amp like this for such a long time because there's so many bad ones. And it's a highly well-produced amplifier nowadays, but the older ones were always the ones that were more special. I don't know from which year this actually is. What I do know is that immediately when I got it, I would play it, and if I loved the sound of it, I would keep it. And if I didn't like it, I send it back. I have no idea how many Marshalls JCM 800s I got over the span of 20 years to finally find something that sounded really good. Then what I did, I had it completely customized electronically inside, and we did some alterations. And now it's absolutely fantastic sounding amplifier. Let's see, where did I use this on? I used this on Sonic the Hedgehog, and I used it on Scooby-Doo for some of the guitar-y stuff. And it's a wonderful amp. Its gain, it has a preamp, but it doesn't really go over the top that much. So it's relatively mellow still, probably. So for the metalheads among you, you might want to potentially use a booster pedal or something to kick it even up more. This is more like bluesy gain, but you do get a good riff sound out of it. So there it is, the beautiful Marshall. And this is the Masterbuilt amplification Stone Groove. It looks like a custom-made box, and it has a tube in it. And what it does is you put your guitar in, and you go out here to your amp, and it really boosts the signal by an insane amount. So it's really great for older guitar amps that didn't have the built-in gain of the modern guitars. It's really flat sounding, and I've used it a lot. I forgot where I used it. Oh, I used this on Terminator to play the da-dum-dum-da-dum riff with the bass. So I plugged the bass in and then out to the amp. It's a really great sounding box. Here we have the Prophet T8 sequential circuit. This is a very rare synth. The Prophet 5 is the one that most people are after. The T8 is a larger keyboard, and it has weighted keys. So when you play it, it feels very luxurious. It has the same two type of oscillators and filter. It has all these cool things what you can do with sensitivity. It even has a form of aftertouch. It has even velocity sensitivity. So it was very modern to have that built into like an analog synth. And it looks in absolutely immaculate condition. This synth has a very delicate sound, so I would never use this for dark bass lines or really screaming pads. I used it more for subtle sequence type of stuff. And I used it a lot on Distance Between Dreams and for white lines. You can program amazing arpeggios, and with the filters and with the touch sensitivity and with aftertouch, you could do these really interesting sounding features, especially if you add like delay and reverb to it. A very, very unique sounding synth and very warm. This, I might say again, this combination is extremely rare. I think there may be, if you're lucky, 5 or 8 operating of these worldwide. So it's the PPG Wave 2.2 and the WAVETERMA. Now the WAVETERMA can be hooked up to the PPG Wave, and it's a wavetable synth, and you can program your own wavetables here and customize them. It's an incredible sound. Absolutely insane. And I've used it a lot for a lot of different projects where dreamy sequences are required because it has that really ambient quality to it. Especially on the documentary that I did for Red Bull, Distance Between Dreams. It's very, very heavily used on that. And also sounds were created with this for the TV show White Lines that I did and got released earlier this year. It's an incredible synth and a very, very rare find to find them together operating. Now I'm gonna discuss 4 different synths in this nice little mini rack here. Why? First of all, they're all designed by the same company, Studio Electronics, a wonderful company on the West Coast that designs these really incredible analog synths. And B, that kind of all do the same thing because these are emulations of the MINIMOOG. It has the 3 oscillators with the different types of waves. It has the filter. It has the mixer. So exactly the same setup as a MINIMOOG. And it totally depends on what you're potentially wanting to spend, because some of them are more expensive, some of them are cheaper. This one over here with all the colored buttons is programmable with a knob, but it comes with different cartridges which will emulate different types of filters, whether it's an OBERHEIM filter, a KORG filter, a ROLAND filter, or a Moog filter. Now the bottom one is very much sought after, and that is the MINIMOOG, and that is made I think in the 80s somewhere. And so all these synths, by the way, are fully analog, but this even looks like a MINIMOOG. And it has MIDI, that's why it's called the MINIMOOG. So it's a very analog touch, analog feel, and you can create really, really amazing bass lines with all this and lead sounds. These 2 ones and the top 3 one allow you to store a lot of presets, like a lot of presets. So it also comes in very, very handy. Now, I've showcased these multiple times in studio times, and there's one episode, I think, was called One Bassline, 4 Different Synths. And so I showed them in that studio time video the differences between these 4. And these were extensively used on Mad Max to create these bass lines, and I would always settle on one of them wherever I got the most chunkiest sound out of them. It sounds really, really big. The low end is super, super fat, and I'm sure these 4 will find their home in the studio where they will be rightfully used for that purpose. They're really, really amazing sounding boxes. This is a very exciting one. This is the Jupiter 8 Roland. An absolutely flagship, beautiful synthesizer released in the 80s. It's got 2 great sounding oscillators. You can program 64 presets in total. You can split the signal, you can double it, or play a single instrument. It's really great. It has an arpeggio in it that you can program. And the sounds that come out of it are really lush and really warm. It's great for pads, for piano type stuff, for leads type stuff, great for ambient type music. It's an absolute immaculate condition. And what is an interesting side note, before I acquired this synth was owned by Michael Sembello. And for people that don't know, Michael Sembello wrote the theme song for Flashdance, She's a Maniac, that 80s hit. And so he owned this before I got it. And it's in a fantastic state, like almost like new out of the shop. And it's a really special synth to have. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Yamaha CS60. It's not as rare and as special as the big brother, the CS80. But I've been able to get incredible sounds out of this. I've used this primarily a lot on the movie Spectral that came out for Netflix in 2016. But it's like a go-to synth to do some really cool sound design in the lower frequencies. And it also has that really smooth lead sound that we know from the original Blade Runner. And it has a really incredible sound, and the controls are so huge. And it's funny because it looks like a classic organ almost. And this was definitely a transition period between being a full synth and having the look of an organ to then go to what we now know, the more modern synths. But it's an incredible sounding machine, and it's in immaculate condition. This is my first synthesizer. It's the MS-10, KORG MS-10. I acquired it very early in the 80s. And this was the signature synth during every gig for Junkie XL that I have been doing. The earliest gig in '96, the latest gig in 2012. And this is also being used on a huge amount of remixes, including the Elvis Presley A Little Less Conversation. It is used on my remix of Madonna. It's been used on the remix I did for Coldplay. And it's also used in some film scores, but it's hard to remember which ones because pretty much every movie. I did use it on Justice League to get the Zack Snyder cut, to get some really growly low frequency basses with a lot of resonance for feedback quality. It's an absolutely spectacular beast, and it's in really, really well conditioned, and yeah, just a wonderful synth. Obviously, it's hard to let go of your loyal friends, and therefore I hope that all these wonderful instruments that have been so faithful to me find an incredible home out there for a future producer, a future musician, a future mixer that will passionately work with these instruments the same way that I did. So for me, it's time to let it go. For you guys, it's start to make music with really incredible gear.